Good afternoon and good evening. This is David Demsey. This is Sittin' In at home as part of the Jazz Room at home. And I want you to meet my good friend and colleague, great trombonist, great vocalist, wonderful world-class arranger, Mr. Pete McGuinness, who will be
Hi, folks.
my partner in crime on the Jazz Room. And I want you to meet Steve. You got to turn your sound off for this. You'll be embarrassed. This is great.
Look out.
One of the great voices of the vibes in jazz history. I mean, if you take that lineage between, Lionel Hampton and even Red Norvo to, Milt Jackson and Bobby Hutcherson, this is the man. This is one of the true masters of the vibraphone, Mr. Steve Nelson. Steve, thank you so much for doing this with us today, and thank you for doing the Jazz Room. Great to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here, David and Pete, and just try to keep the lineage going. They tell me that no one cares about vibes players, but I think this is the 100th year of the vibe since the discovery of the vibraphone in this country anyway. So there's some big celebrations going on.
Good. Well, I
That's
hope
perfect. Yeah.
It's a vibe player thing, right? Yeah.
Well,
but your guy knew that. It's a college at your percussion guy knew that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Peyton McDonald, who's a wizard in his own right.
Yeah.
I would like to see you and he team up for some things.
Oh, we should do that. Yeah. I don't know him well, but I would love to sometime.
Yeah. Well, I will make sure he sees this video. So it's
cool.
Got to do something.
Good.
Steve, was it the vibes from the beginning? How did you start? Where were your beginnings as a musician?
Yeah, it was just about. I kind of started piano, vibes, and drums all around the same time, but none of them really lasted. And the vibes kind of won out, So I didn't really spend that much time on any of them except when I got to the vibes. And then I stayed on piano along with the vibes. So.
Huh. And what age was that?
Oh, I was late, man. This is a teenager. I certainly wasn't a child prodigy or anything like that. 16, 17 years old. About 16, I guess I started getting into it.
And you're from what part?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So were you, did you take part in that? There's a real nice jazz scene in Pittsburgh.
I did. It was because I'm a senior citizen now, I'm old enough to remember some of the cats were still on the scene in Pittsburgh. None of the guys like Art Blakey, they had all left. Ahmed Jamal, they had all left. But there was quite a residual scene there still from that time. Many of the guys were older cats around the scene. So I had a chance to partake of some really great players who were just never made it out. They could have, but they just had families and worked in the steel mills in Pittsburgh and that kind of thing.
Harold Better's on the scene then?
Harold Betters was one of them. Yeah, Harold Betters, he's one of the better known ones, really. Harold Betters, Walt Harper, those guys were on the scene, and they had jazz clubs too. He had a club in Pittsburgh, so he was quite active. Yeah.
And then you left Pittsburgh. Did you leave to go on the road or to go to school or?
I left because I was such a mess at that time. I had dropped out of high school and trying to figure out what to do with myself. And my brother was up here, my older brother was up in New Jersey. And he said, well, you're not doing anything there, so why don't you come up here and hang out with me, for a while and see if we can straighten you out a bit. And it worked out because at that time, Larry Ridley had just started the program there in New Brunswick. He was in New Brunswick, yeah.
And so you went involved at Rutgers even then.
That's what happened. You know, I came up there and got familiar with that program and went over and met Larry and the guys. And that was so many years ago. That was in the 70s, I'm sure, mid to late 70s, man. And I met Kenny. Kenny was there, and Larry, and Al Harewood.
Oh,
People, very great drummer. Not enough people know about him. Al was there. Frank Foster was there at that time. Of course, Ted Dunbar was there at that time. You know, lots of great players were there teaching. So I kind of got in on the ground level, and that actually started me out in a real definite direction.
Yeah, there has been a lot of great stuff going on at Rutgers for many, many years.
Yeah.
Really before us, my predecessor, Marty Criven, kind of end arounded everybody, to use a football analogy. This degree, nobody else had a degree in this, but Rutgers and what's now Rowan, but used to be Glassboro State. Album was down there. And of course,
right.
Jersey City. There's a lot of great things going on around.
Yeah.
What kind of things were you doing there, Steve? You were playing out as well?
Well, at that time, it's a funny thing. Right around that time, I got the call to go on a little road trip, and that's my first real road gig. Grant Green, who always used vibes, you know, called me out. He's a guitar player named, oh my goodness, now his name Jerry Bird was his name, and he knew Grant quite well, and I knew Jerry from playing in Pittsburgh. So Grant's vibes player broke his foot or something. So I went out on the road for about, it was about a year-long thing back and forth with Grant, and so that was around that same time. So I didn't really get into the school until that next year, and then I just became a student, and I studied with all those cats and played around the town, and I was fed into the scene by those guys, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Grant Green, I mean, that's...
Oh yeah, that was quite an experience, man. To be a young cat out on the road, and I don't know how old I was, maybe 20 or so, 21.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that was one of my first gigs, and then, like probably my second gig, Kenny had, down that time, Ron Carter had the piccolo bass band, with Buster Williams on bass and Ron playing piccolo bass, and Ben Rowley and Kenny. And so Kenny was doing that, and he, I think, wanted to start his own quartet, so he asked me to be in that quartet with him and Buster and Ben. So that was like one of my second major gigs, and
Was that from coming out of the school scene, or was that from other people, or?
That was mostly from coming out of the school scene, because that's really where I knew Kenny from,
right.
Better. And he wanted me, I think he enjoyed the vibraphone as well. And he asked me to come do some things with him. And I tell the funny story that I looked up, and I think we were playing Sweet Basil or something, and I looked up, and I'm up there on the stage with Kenny Barron, Buster Williams, and Ben Rowley. So I said, I know I must be dreaming here, but I don't want anybody to wake me up. Just don't wake me up, So that was great. That was a great gig.
That you had gotten it together for sure.
Yeah, it was a great time, playing with Kenny, and we played a lot of clubs in New York and everything. So it was fun.
Before or during, or how did that relate to Sphere? Because that same group.
That was before Sphere.
Okay.
That was before Sphere. Yeah, and then that was right. Sphere came right after that time. He came in, and Charles Rouse came in, and they started doing Sphere. So can't do that,
No. Did you ever play with Charlie as well?
Rouse?
Did that over?
Not in Sphere. I was fortunate to have done quite a few things with Rouse in different settings, just pickup gigs. Different people would call and he'd be on the gig. And I knew his son at that time quite well, Chico, who played drums, and we did quite a few gigs together. So I knew Chico quite well. And yeah, and so I had quite a few chances to play with Charles Rouse, and fortunately, we hit it off real well. You know, some guys you hit it, some guys you don't hit it off well, but we were pretty good friends. So it was great.
Yeah, to me, one of the vastly under-recognized.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it, man. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
When you hear some of those things with Monk, and especially, man, he's classic stuff.
Yeah, and one of the great sounds, just
yes, that's right.
You know,
those cats.
A few times,
they are.
And stuff. You know, when I was a Joe Allard student around that time, and he was a huge influence. Just hearing that sound live, just kind
of
expands your mind. It's,
yeah.
So what we were saying a minute ago about live versus this, you cannot replace hearing things in the room with you.
That's a good point, man. That's a big deal to get out and hear the live players, hear the music really live. Well, you still can. Who knows how long you'll be able to, but you need to hear the players live so you can hear what they really sound like. You know, the recordings are great and everything, and you can use them to study from, but sooner or later you have to hear it live. That's what Mulgrew used to say. For every drummer that comes in my band, Mulgrew would say, your first task is you have to find out where Louis Hayes is playing, and you have to go and listen to his ride cymbal. You know, and that's the kind of thing you can't get. You can get it somewhat on recording, but you really need to sit beside it and listen to it.
Yeah. What I saw, we were talking earlier about what they're trying to do in this world of lockdowns and trying to keep the clubs alive and all that. I was commenting that actually earlier today. I was watching you play with your quartet at a recorded past streaming concert you did over the summer. And I enjoyed the music, and it was fairly balanced, but of course it's not anything like hearing the vibraphone resonate in a room.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But also, at least I got to see you perform and to watch you play, watch you not just hit the mallets on the vibes, but the way your whole being was involved in what you were playing and how you finish a phrase.
Yeah.
And it was just, there was this slight bit of drama to your connection to the instrument that's you don't get that on a record either. You don't see them.
Yeah, it's certain things. Certain things you can't get from a recording. Not their recordings are so important, to study from, but you just have to really go and listen to the music, and there's an electricity when you hear it, and the people, well, we'll get them back, but
we will.
People in the audience, and all of that plays a part in it, and you just can't get that from recordings, and you can't get it from streams without the people there. Even you really have to be there, hearing the immediate thing of the music. So it's important, and not just in jazz, and in many things you gotta be there. Like at a Broadway show or something, you have to be in front of it and get the immediate thing from the audience, the back and forth between the audience and the performer.
Steve, you mentioned the one and only, the wonderful Mulgrew Miller. And I know the two of you were like brothers, We all miss him here. For those who were new to the William Patterson scene, Mulgrew was the director of jazz studies here for 8 years. and it's one of the great gifts of my life to be able to work with him. Can you talk about Mulgrew and any, I mean, you collaborated, you were in his Wingspan group, you did so much together. Can you talk about it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, it's well, I was glad that Mulgrew was teaching was one thing, because he was always a big proponent of young musicians, and as long as I knew him, he loved the young players and they loved him. They would flock around him. We'd be in the back room and they would just gather around him, and he was happy they were there. So he had like a certain influence on me in that way. I'm watching him do that in terms of bringing new generations into the music. He knew how important that was for one thing. So he always did that. And if you really look at his bands, you can see that. Besides having me there, who was one of the ancient members of the bands, he always had new young guys in the band. Kareem, Riggins, Rodney Green, Ivan, Richie Goods. All those people were coming through and learning from him, from just being around him, because of his great grasp of the music and the language, and his tremendous experience of playing the music, man. If you look at his whole career, he came in with the Ellington band. That was one of the first bands. That's a heavy thing, and a lot of those cats were still in the band, at that time. And from there, to Betty Carter and to Art Blakey and to Woody Shaw and Tony Williams, all of that goes into when you're ready to have your own band, all of that goes into that. So that's a tremendous amount of the history and a tremendous amount of experience to bring to bear on any performance you give and to any band that you have. And I don't know if we'll have that kind of thing anymore. I hope we will, but it's just an amazing thing. He was like one of the last connections, one of the last bridges that you have to cross in that sense in the music. You had to really absorb him, because he represented so much of the history of the music. If you were going to play this music, you had to cross that bridge, and many young pianists have. I can hear it in so many of them, so
yeah. When we lost James Williams here, that could have spelled the end of a lot of programs.
Yeah.
Grew to follow in those shoes. It was perfect.
That was absolutely the perfect thing to do, and I think that was just fate or something like that, because if that position wouldn't have opened up, I'm not sure Mulgrew would have taken a teaching position anywhere else, so that was the perfect spot for him to be. And like I say, it's great to see him teach because of his association with young players and his dedication to bringing along new young generations.
One thing I remember, I've only been here 9 years. David has been here at this program longer, so my time working with Mulgrew was less. But I do remember a couple of special moments. Mulgrew was often, I would watch him work with students, and sometimes he would listen a lot. He listened more than talked. But as soon as he had something to say, and I saw this every single time, as soon as he had something to say, every head turned and everyone shut up, because whatever he was about to say was the right thing at the right time.
Sure.
Just a succinct, right to the point thing. And another, you just waited for it. That little purr, you make the rhythm dance, or something like that. And he would say it right at the right moment. And then one student came out of there, Jerry, once, and didn't do as well as they could. but it was for reasons like they weren't prepared. It wasn't that they were nervous or anything. I remember this. I'll tell you what later, David. The student came out, and Mulgrew just put his hand on the student's shoulder and said, "You know, you really could have done better than that. You know, you could have done better."
Yeah.
And he said, "You know why?" And the student said, "Yeah, I know why." After that, that student started shedding. I mean, and got a lot better really fast. I mean, I don't know if it was that one moment, but those little things he would do at the right time, in the right way, with the right words. I mean, it was so wonderful to see. Such a
That sounds like something he would do. Yeah, that's
in a
he
nice,
knows.
direct way, you know.
Yeah, right. Both of those things, you know.
Yeah.
It was firm, but he was still cool. That's really the experience thing. He knows what to do, and you know, from his own experience, he knows what to advise people to do, what advice to give, and everything. So yeah, I think
Really
he's
could
great.
do that. Yeah.
You know, one of our students she was in his ensemble for 4 semesters. She recorded every hour of every ensemble rehearsal, with 200 hours of him teaching. And she was a pianist. So
That's amazing.
every rehearsal, you'd hear bands playing along, and you kind of hear his voice softly say, "Just slide over for a second." Boom! All of a sudden, he would be.
Buddy, I can see him doing that.
Her.
Yeah.
And then now she's starting to edit it, so you kind of get Mulgrew's thoughts about drummers and Mulgrew about the bass player's role.
Right.
Comping. She's kind of getting it by topic, and I really hope that we get all that, because it's just an invaluable thing. You know, Pete, you know, that quote about music it's about singing and dancing.
Right.
Yeah.
From the
That's
caveman, it's always been about singing and dancing. And if you can't sing the melody, doesn't make you dance, you're up the creek. You know, has to do.
It's a lot of those kind of things, getting some really fundamental things together, which I think that they're easy to pass by, and a lot of people pass by them, and you can't do that. You wind up a lot of times you have to go back and get some very fundamental things, but it's hard for kids to get those things because they don't necessarily always have the access, you know, that.
Sure. Now, that's a thing. That really is a thing. You know, private lessons, professional model instruments, all that stuff costs money. You know, it's not fair sometimes. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's
Mulgrew had one thing that I want to ask, if you ever heard him say it, and then how does it apply to you personally? You grew up and you were in the scene in Pittsburgh. Mulgrew would always say to the students, "You sound pretty good, but you're not ready for New York yet." That it wasn't a put down. It was just, "Are you ready for New York?" Not to put down New Jersey either by any means, but what he meant was the vanguard. He meant the Cats. When you left Pittsburgh and then you were with your brother and then you were in school at Rutgers, what was one of those those first moments where you felt like, I'm on the scene, I'm here, I'm with New York area musicians, and I feel I'm a colleague now, you know, as opposed to, I don't know if you felt that way in Pittsburgh, maybe you did, but did you have some kind of different feeling when you started playing with the New York area musicians, or in the
yeah, well, it's different in New York, you know, where in Pittsburgh there were great players, you know, and so New York is the place that attracts all the big fish in each city, but then you come to New York and you're just another fish in that sea. So you learn on the bandstand that it's another level of playing. I remember I was playing and I was up there as one of my first gigs, and I played a solo and it was pretty good, and it was that Sweet Basil, that first gig I played there with Kenny, and people applauded and it was nice. So I felt kind of good. And man, Kenny must have took about 30 courses, just building and I said, oh, now I see how they do it, So that's the kind of thing you learn when you come to New York, that it's on a different level, He must have, different grooves were happening. They were going into bossa and swing, all kinds of stuff was going on. It was just a high creative level like that, and so you have to, when you come to play in New York, you have to rise up to that point. And that's a challenge to have. Most young people that I know, they accept the challenge, and they understand that, but certainly if you don't accept that challenge, you're not gonna last long in New York, because it's the highest level playing you're gonna have anywhere in the world. And you can't. I remember Junior Cook once, I heard him play one time, and he said to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, you can't hear music like this anywhere else in the world. And he was really right. New York's the only place you can hear music at a certain level like that. Because it just sounds different in New York when you're playing. So yeah, you have to rise up to that challenge.
Steve, sometimes we have questions posed by third parties for these Sittin' In. And this one, you may have already answered a bit with your reference to Grant Green, but this question actually comes from a great musician, truly great, who's one of your fans too, and that's Bill Charlap. And he had
oh my God.
question. He said, what I would love to hear Steve talk about is how he's such a harmonic master, totally mastered the jazz language and playing over changes, but there's always this nasty bluesy thing happening in how on earth does he keep those two things happening in his playing? Can you talk about that?
I some things you don't know how you do, but I think a lot of that probably comes from growing up in Pittsburgh. You had to have a good feeling with those audiences. You had to have some blues in your playing, you weren't going to last very long on a gig. And I try to keep it in my sound in general, just as a feeling that permeates the music. Because to me, I think all of the great players that I know of had that, even someone like Charlie Parker, I can always hear the blues in his sound, even no matter what. Train as well, these people, most of them had it in their sound. So I try to keep that in there, and always. So that's my hometown thing, I guess. And then I learned so much about harmony when I came to Rutgers, especially from Mr. Dunbar, who was teaching jazz harmony at that time. So he taught a lot of people, a lot of guitarists and everything. So I learned so much from him, at that time. Yeah. So I try to keep it all. I try to keep it all in there if I can. I try to keep it all together. You don't hear a lot of that so much these days. I think, of everything together. You can definitely hear that in Mulgrew's playing. You can hear.
Oh yeah.
Everything and all that. So I think it's important to it's important to value all of that together. It's important that you don't just value all of the most complex harmonies and everything. That's fine, we value that, but you have to value the blues feeling in there, and you have to value those simple things that Mulgrew's talking about. Just make it dance. Those are real simple, fundamental things in the music that you have to place value on them, so that if you don't place value on it, you're not going to learn it. You're not going to try to do it. So I try to tell young people to place value on those things, like swinging. You have to place a certain value on that, and you know. But anyway, I try to put it all together.
I think a lot of young people who are really kind of just listening to the flavor of the day, or it's something that's not so swing oriented or very wrapped up in like experimental or original music by artists, they're you know, they just haven't been as exposed to someone like you or someone from a different time period where you know, the real masters of the groove. It's like with my students, sometimes when I expose them to this stuff that we all feel that they should have some memory of at least, I watch them, their reactions. It's just sort of like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, or like,
Yeah.
This is the heavy level that it's on. This is what I've been missing out on.
Right.
And it's like, it's almost like a scramble to go back and try and catch up what they used to have in the first place in their background.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's important. And they don't realize until they hear someone great doing it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what they've been talking about all this time, when the hands of a real, you hear that groove or you hear the line, that's all the things you're talking about, you know.
Yeah, those are the real subtle, kind of the subtle parts of the music that you can't necessarily get from a book. You know, there's things that you can't do that, but they can get it. They're like you say, once they realize it and they say, wow, you know, that's
what it is. Yeah.
The way the young kids are now with their minds, the way they can go back and get just about anything that they want. So they have an opportunity to learn it all now, but you have to place a value on it. If you want to play jazz, you might not want to play jazz, but if you want to play jazz, you have to.
Right.
You know, another hugely important thing that I feel our students learn from you, one of the great experiences leading our jazz orchestra here was having you as a guest.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Full disclosure, this concert that folks are about to hear was originally supposed to be Steve Nelson with the William Patterson Jazz Orchestra.
Right, that's right.
With the students writing for you.
So
yeah, sure.
Last time you were here, I will never forget the start of the rehearsal. There we are, we're all set. We passed out the charts and we'd been practicing them, and you were kind of, you know, came in and you're always kind of low key, relaxed. Well, yeah, sure. Let's hear it. First chart starts, man, you hit like a gun going off. All the students, and you know, there we are. It was Thursday morning at 11 o'clock, and we were in the rehearsal room. All the students kind of went, boom.
Yeah.
They learned, and what I was reminded of is there is no rehearsal speed. This is the music.
That's right.
Playing for each other as much as you're playing for the audience.
That's right. Yeah, that's the thing. Well, that's the thing about being close to New York. You know, you always have to maintain that high level until it just becomes a part of you. You know, that whenever you play, it's there. So yeah.
Well, I want you to know you helped it become a part of those students, and those students, the band changed after they played with you.
Oh, that's great. That's
different.
Great.
Those students were different. They really learned that. We talked about it a lot afterwards.
Yeah.
He said, I remember you left and we were together the next day, and they said, my God, I'll never forget that moment when he made that first entrance, and it was like he blew our chairs out of the, you know.
Good. That's a good thing. If you have a few moments that you remember while you're studying in school, that's very, very valuable. You know, we all have those moments that we remember, you know, and those are the things you take with you, you know, and into your career. So that's great. I hope they can continue on, you know.
Well, we want to get you back with the big band at some point. We want to get our students to write a whole album for you, big band.
Yeah,
We're
I
on our way to
enjoyed
getting
it.
a record together.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to. It's, you know, we can't do a lot of things right now, unfortunately. But
No.
when we get back to it, I'd love to do it again.
I got to tell you too, you know, when you know, I oversee the graduate arranging program, and those second year grad students are the ones that always write for the guest artists. And I think the year you came with the big band a few years back, and would have this year, well, a few years, I think there are at least 3 or 4 composer arrangers, and we picked your compositions, you know, and I think we even talked to you. They may have even called you and said, how do you feel if I do this? How do you feel if I do that? But I got to tell you, the songs you sent, and you know, I'm sure you can imagine them being with a big band, they work so well, and the students just had such a grand time writing the arrangements of your compositions. They lent themselves so well to the arranging process.
Yeah,
I thought they were
beautiful.
really successful charts, and that concert was successful. So got half an album done now. So
Oh, that's
if they become rich and
okay.
famous, we'll have to get their permission now, right?
That's all right. I love hearing that kind of thing, you know, because they, like I say, kids, they can take stuff now and use their imaginations, and it's wonderful. So I'm anxious to always to hear what they do with it, you know.
Yeah, it's
What
awfully
they
fun.
come up with.
Do you partner with university bands much?
No, not really. I haven't been doing much of that at all that I can think of in the yeah, over the past few years. I haven't done much of that in terms of big bands. You know, vibraphone hasn't been used too much in the big bands, but I wish it was used a lot more. The few times that it has been used has been quite effective. So I think Slide wrote some things for Bobby Hutcherson, and there's
right,
you know, when it's used in big band, it's really effective. So I think that it should be written for more in that area. It would be great.
You can consider yourself on the short list always.
Oh, definitely. I not big bands, but in smaller groups. Donald Brown wrote some great things for vibraphone. He's, you know,
nice writer.
Really, yeah, he wrote
really
some
nice composer.
Yeah, for vibraphone. So, you know.
Can you talk about this concert at all? Please tell us who's playing with you, and if you just again, full disclosure for the people listening, this precedes the performance. Steve's already recorded it, so we can talk about what will happen because it's already happened.
Kind of like time travel a little bit. It's a little weird, right?
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Time travel happening.
Yeah. Those are my guys in my band, and we've been together for about 3 years now, and it's quite a wonderful experience to have your own band. It's something I always really wanted to do, and it gives me a chance to play the music that I want to play. I guess anyone would say that, you know, but it gives you a chance to do what you want to do. And your band is certainly a representative of who you are and how you feel about the music. So the stuff we're doing is always going to be swinging, and it's always going to be a lot of standards and a lot of tunes, you know, that's who I am. But there's quite a few of my original songs that we're doing too when we play together. I don't know if we did that many of them there that day, but a lot of the time I'll just call songs on that day because we've been together long enough now where we've gotten a little book. So I kind of call whatever comes into my mind. But those guys are great, man. Kiyoshi on the bass, who actually is Kenny Barron's bass player as well. and great Rick Germanson on piano, who is absolutely so wonderful, you know, in terms of just playing the right thing at the right time. You know, it's hard sometimes to find a pianist that can do that, you know, but for me, he really exemplifies that. He listens so well, and no matter what direction I go in, he knows what to do. So I'm lucky to have him, and I couldn't do without him there. And Charles Gould, same thing on the drums. Charles's dad is Ned Gould. He plays saxophonist. So he's kind of come up with the music, grown up with it, and I got to have a drummer who can who's sensitive but who can swing. And
He's
Charles
a nice touch. He's a lovely touch.
Yeah, that's what you need. He's got that kind of thing that you don't always hear anymore, because, you know, when I first went to school, I was telling you, there in the old days, Al Harewood was there, who had that same kind of touch, you know. So I kind of started out with that. So I'm always looking for drummers that's got a nice touch, but who can swing as well. So all those guys have those qualities, and we're trying to play the foundations of the music, and I'm trying to stretch things as much as I can into my own concepts and my own way of looking at harmony, and seeing how much I can move that forward in the music and also on the vibraphone as well. So new generations of the vibraphone will have the fundamentals and the basics, but they'll also be a part of the scene in terms of trying to reach for new things and new ideas as well. So that's what I'm hoping to do with the band, and I love having the band. It's just a great experience for me. So we keep doing it. We're doing a long residency down there at Smalls. We've been there, so that gives us a chance to play even during the virus. We're still doing the live streams down there, as many bands are. So we're still doing that, and it's fun to play with the guys. You know, it's a blast.
Steve, how does your musicianship as a composer relate to you as a player? Are you writing tunes all the time, or is it a rarity for you? Or
I've written that's the thing. Since I have my own band, I've been writing a lot more. The idea is to have a wide variety of things. So, you know, we have quite a few things that are go in a lot of different directions. Because of my career, I've played with a lot of different people. So I've written some songs that are in 11 and some things in 7s, and we do that. And we got a lot of straight ahead things. We might play Satin Doll. It could be just about anything in the wide spectrum that I've been blessed to play this music in. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. I hope that guys grasp the fundamentals, and they can keep on reaching out into new areas. I think that's what brought Mulgrew and I together. In a sense, we wanted to maintain the heartbeat of the music, and then we wanted to see how far we could stretch things, and that's the goal, you know, is to maintain the fundamental essence of the music, and still stretch things out as far conceptually as you can, and you know, that's what we try to do. And you know, I think, you know, it's the future is bright for the future of the music. I think young people are getting the hang of it, and they're listening to, they listen to people like Mulgrew, and they listen to the history of the music, and they're trying to do new things. So I think we'll be okay as long as we maintain the history and the fundamentals, and we keep trying to stretch it more.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Being on the faculty here, I hear so much study of the history, but also so many new things. It's
yeah
a mixture, and I know you talk about those goals of your band, and I know that you certainly achieved those goals on this gig, because several people who were there said that was one of the most beautiful sets of music they had ever heard in their career.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's great. That's why when you have your own band, that's the other thing that I love. You can put sets together. That's something that I think I've gotten better at since I've had the guys, is putting good sets together and placing one tune after another one in the right framework there. So it's good to do that. Just to be able to call a tune off and make sure it's in the right place. So that's another good advantage of having your own group.
Yeah.
Now, Charles, in your band, your drummer.
Yeah.
How did you come across Charles, and what did someone recommend it? Did you hear him play?
Well, when I was starting the band, I was trying to find someone, and I had heard Charles he was Johnny O'Neill's drummer. He was playing with Johnny, and so I didn't know if he would be available, but it turned out that he was available to do some gigs with me. And as soon as he got in there, I knew that I wanted to keep him, because he had what I was looking for, all those qualities of being able to swing, a beautiful touch. But if I wanted to play, if I wanted to play one of my tunes that had a little different flavor to it, he could go in any direction I wanted him to. So that's why I got him, and that's why I keep him. I couldn't do without any of these guys. I think they're all such great players, because they have a firm foundation and great imaginations as well. But Charles is getting busy. He's been doing things with Lincoln Center. Winton's got a hold of him now, and so as it should be.
He's in demand.
Yeah, he's in demand.
Yeah, he's becoming one of the mainstays of the scene. That's great.
Yeah. That's that becomes a challenge as a band leader, just to keep your guys, together. So
another feeling. Yeah.
It could be tough, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it all with the guys. It's great.
Well, speaking of mainstays of the scene, we would like to thank you, Steve, for spending this time with us. We're just about to run out of time, and it's time for the concert to start. Our sincere thanks from Pete and me for spending this time with us. This has been great, and as I said, we would welcome you being back at William Patterson whenever we can do this. Not only at me, but I know the students want you back. You've got a lot of fans here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to do the concert, and great to have a chance to talk, and you guys are doing a great job there with the students, and keep up the good work. That's the thing, because you're creating the next generation of players, and with all the great teachers that are there, it's very important. You're giving all the kids a good foundation too, and so just keep doing it. Keep doing what you guys are doing. I think you're running a great program there, and I'm blessed to play there. So thank you.
Thank you, and to right in the neighborhood, right in.
I know, that's the other thing.
We can even give you gas money to come.
That's it.
Got
Yeah, well, it's so close to me. It's true. You know,
thank you again for the concert, and yeah, we will be doing this again. We want you to be more involved with everything.
okay. Let's do it again, and we'll see everyone real soon. I hope. And,
in the flesh, in reality.
yeah,
Soon.
that's what I was getting ready to say, Pete. We'll see everybody with a real live audience and real players. We're up on the stage together, a whole big band, and we'll put it all together again.
Yes.
But till then, you know, keep doing what you're doing. I know you guys have a whole series going, so
We do, and you know, a lot of our ensembles are 2/3 of our ensembles are happening live.
tremendous.
We're being very careful, you know.
Yeah.
A little odd with all the, you know, partitions up and everything, but we're because the students want to do it. They have to do it.
Yeah, that's great that they're doing. Yeah, you can do things safely. You could, you know, it's possible to do things safely, you know, as long as you're
they all
careful.
get it too. They're all doing the thing. They're wearing the masks. They're honoring the 6 feet. They're being really good about this. We're very proud of them.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Perfect.
best wishes to you, Steve, and
Okay.
much more to come, I hope.
Okay. Thank you, David. Thank you, Pete. Thank you guys very
Thank you,
much.
Steve.
We'll see everyone soon.
Okay.